Welcome, I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher. From our BizVision studios in the UK, you're watching the BVTV Conscious Matters channel. Sometimes, and it's just sometimes, when I'm in the midst of an interview for one of our channels, it flashes to my mind that my interviewee or guest would also be an ideal guest for one of our other channels. And today, I'm delighted to be welcoming back one of those just sometimes guests for our Conscious Matters channel and to talk about conscious leadership. She's achieved a lot. A major in the US Army Reserves, a Congressional candidate, author, and founder of PAWS Consulting, a public health and consulting firm. So let's say hello again to Dr. Angela Demaree. Hello, Angela.
Hello, Malcolm. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, I was so excited to see you again. But you've got lots of snow in Indiana, haven't you?
Yes. Feet of snow here in Indiana.
Not metric. No, you haven't gone metric yet.
Oh, maybe half a meter or so of snow. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, it's okay. No, we haven't gone metric either, but feet will do fine. Angela, I'm delighted we are kindly guesting on the BVTV Conscious Matters show. This channel is one of our fastest growing channels around the world as people awaken to the need to be conscious. Now, the viewers and listeners, in this BVTV show, I'll be talking to Angela in 3 parts. First part, I'll ask her to tell us her thoughts on conscious leadership. Part 2, we'll move to talking about being supportive to your team. And in part 3, we'll talk about conscious leadership in your community. But Angela, before we get into that 3-part talk, can you please briefly introduce yourself to my viewers and listeners? Who is Angela Demaree and what drives you?
Oh, thank you so much, Malcolm. And as you mentioned, I am a veteran, a veterinarian, an author, and a certified high performance coach. And I work with corporate professionals, public health organizations, and political candidates who want to leave that survival mode behind and implement effective strategies to build and lead high performing teams or to improve public health outcomes at the local, state, or even globally.
Wow. Yeah. And did you enjoy your time in the Army?
I did very much. And, it really brings to mind our topic today on conscious leadership and how to really be aware and motivate and inspire teams.
Brilliant. Angela, let's kick off the talk in part 1 with your thoughts on conscious leadership. What makes a good conscious leader? What skills, what thinking, what commitment? For example, you've delved into the world of politics, and I'm going to say this with a little bit of a grin. Have you met any conscious leaders there?
Well, yes, actually, I have. There are conscious leaders, I think, at every level. And as you, I think, sort of alluded to, we can all do better to raise our collective consciousness and become a better leader. And so for me, I think some of those really key skill sets are learning how to be fully present in the moment, putting our phones away, right? Really connecting with the people in the same room as us or who are right in front of us, and be curious. Ask one more question after you think you understand. Just challenge yourself, right? I challenge your audience to just ask one more question and see what they can learn, because conscious leaders, as you know, Malcolm, have that growth mindset. They're always so focused on learning. And I think they're generous. They're generous with their time and their spirit. And, that's part of why, as you may have realized or seen or mentioned when we talked about my book the last time, that on the top it says always serving and always learning. Right. And so that's part of my mantra, to remind myself on how I can be a better leader every day when I'm always focused on what can I learn here and how can I serve here.
Can I just ask you, going back again to that time when you were a major in reserves, did you learn conscious leadership in the Army?
There were pieces of the puzzle throughout all of my training in leadership. And so part of what's great about the military is that they do formal leadership training where we can learn pieces and parts and what makes a great leader. And something that they recognized was that oftentimes you're taking over a team that may already be established as a commander of a unit, or having that leadership role within how do we manage teams, and that applies to corporate world as well.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I'm coming in, I'm taking over a team. Where do we start? And really asking questions. And part of what they taught us, which was conscious leadership, right, is to share a little bit about ourselves and what our sort of style might be, but then also to listen. Hey, what's going well here? What can be improved? What would you like to see? If we were going to accomplish that mission even better, what would that look like to you? And allowing the team to take part.
Yeah. Okay. Now, a lot of people think of the conscious agenda as planet, people, and profits, but I think there's lots of sub-agendas in there, including the gender agenda. Are you seeing the opportunity for women leaders emerging more strongly than it was in the past?
Well, I think there's more data around when women are in charge, or when we have more women sitting on a board, that companies do better, that there are more profits, that there are more team building, and the culture is shifted. And so I think there have always been opportunities, but I think now it's really come to light that when women are involved, I mean, we're 50% of the population across the world. So it would make sense that we're involved at that same 50% level. But even when we are just involved at the 30% level, there are key metrics of improvement there. And so I think the more diversity of thought, the more gender diverse and ethnically diverse we are, the more we learn, right? So the more different perspectives and viewpoints are around that table, that better reflects our customers at large.
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah. Let's move to talking about part two. But before we do that, I'd just like to remind viewers and listeners of your website URL, which is all the W's, everybody. And viewers, you can see it on the screen behind me. For listeners, let me read it out. It's PAWS, P-A-W-S, PAWS as in my dog that's clawing at the door at the moment, pawsconsulting.com, pawsconsulting.com. And you're going to find it when you go there. You're going to find a lot more about Angela and her thinking, and about her authoring as well. Angela, time for part two, and let's talk about the conscious leader being supportive to his or her team. Now, as a starter and as a major in the US Army Reserves, leading a team of soldiers, especially in the Middle East, you must have had to draw on your supportive skills many times, didn't you?
Of course. And I think something that really helped drive our teams across, I was leading teams across multiple countries, several remote locations, and that can be challenging in the best of times, let alone when, maybe we can't get from point A to point B very easily due to a sandstorm, or maybe communication isn't as easy as we would like. And something that really helped was, how do we engage with purpose? Like, always thinking about engaging with purpose, and then what motivates each member of the team. I don't think we very often think through, well, I know I'm motivated by these reasons, but why is each member of the team motivated? And remembering that there are three primary drivers for motivation, which is intrinsic, how is it important to me? Extrinsic, how is it important to somebody else? How can I? And then for the greater good, how does this impact for the greater good, to your point about people, profits, the planet, right?
Yeah.
And so, and when we really think about that, maybe it doesn't matter why we're each individually motivated, but when we're collectively motivated towards a common outcome, towards that common goal, we can move mountains, even when it's for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah. And, that supportive angle I was talking about there is so important at the moment, where, people have suffered with pandemic. It's all right. People say, oh, well, you're working from home. But just think about all the thousands of deaths that have occurred, and the impact upon families, the economy, and so on. It's going to last for a long while, isn't it? Supportiveness is going to be so important.
Yes, I mean, we really have to be there for each other more than ever before. And, my heart goes out to everyone who's lost a member of their family or a member of their team, a member of their community. And how do we collectively work together to put an end to this pandemic, right? We know from a public health perspective, wearing masks, social distancing, when it's our turn to go and get our vaccines, that we can all both work together to keep ourselves and our families safe, but also to keep each other safe as well.
Yeah, yes, so important. And we are becoming hopefully more compassionate and considerate. Are you finding that change happening in the USA at the moment?
Yes, and I think both we've gone through, remember that storming, norming,
Yeah.
and forming for teams coming together and then becoming norming and then getting into flow and really being high performing teams. So when we think about that a little bit, we're seeing people, having so much uncertainty and then coming together and being incredibly supportive and caring. And now even, we're getting a little burned out. So we're seeing some people maybe push against those boundaries a little bit. But I think if we can really say, I get it, it's hard, we're exhausted, we're tired, but how can I be compassionate and caring towards my neighbor? And how can we really be looking at everybody as neighbors taking care of neighbors right now, even when we're having bad days or our neighbors having a bad day? And I think that's where a little bit of this collective consciousness comes in, that if we can each individually be a piece of that collective consciousness to move ourselves and our communities forward, that's going to go a long way.
Brilliant. Yes, I'm totally with you. And I also feel, by the way, as a personal thing, that those businesses that don't make the change to a more conscious leadership will be the ones that will get left behind, because people won't want to go and work for them, will they?
Right. No, I think you're right. So either whether we're an employee and we want to work there, whether we're a consumer and we're going to spend our dollars there, there are so many choices we have in this day and age. And we're in the middle of our fourth industrial revolution. So we're going to continue to see technology increase and take off at rates that we probably could never have envisioned.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Angela. Now for part 3, and a place that you are now in with PAWS Consulting. A conscious leader needs to be aware of his or her community. After all, it's like many of our company's workforce reside and live in that local community. What part does the conscious leader need to play, and how can it be done?
Well, thank you so much for that question, Malcolm. And as I was thinking about this, I came up with an acronym, and that is I AM. So it's the first part of each and every one of us is a leader, right? So if I am that conscious leader, then, and as you know, all politics is local. I'm sure you've heard that saying before. So how do each of us impact that community? Well, the I stands for identifying a skill that you have, a strength that you have, or an issue that you care about very deeply, that you want to give back and be involved in your local community. A is for aware. So be aware of the needs of your community. Maybe it's not the skill set you have, but can you connect your community with others who can fulfill that need? And so you can either serve or help connect others to those needs. And then M is for motivate. Motivate or invite others to join you in that, because collectively we can all work towards having better communities at every level.
I love that. I am. That's really good. Yeah. And you heard it first, ladies and gentlemen, here on BBTV. Thank you, Angela. It's a great one, that. To me, there's great pleasure in meeting a former guest. I like to think of my interviewees as friends, and that we're on the same journey together. To me, that certainly seems the case in this interview, as once again, I've had the delight to talk with Dr. Angela Demaree. Thanks, Angela, for another great interview.
Oh, thank you so much, Malcolm. And you have a wonderful day.